2001 wreaked havoc on the Ghana football and shattered home, shook the foundation of our country after 127 of our citizens tragically lost their life. We will never forget this day, and our departed brothers and sisters is the reason why we have gathered here once again for the 20th time since 2001. The greatest tribute we can always pay to our departed brothers and sisters is for all stakeholders to continue to join hands and ensure that never again.
Good evening, this is MX24. Welcome to Off the Cuff. Today is Mother's Day, and traditionally we should be celebrating our mothers. But it happened to also fall on the 20th anniversary of the May 9th disaster, in which 127 people lost their lives at the Accra Sports Stadium, having gone to the stadium to watch a match between Kumasi Asante Kotoko and Accra Hearts of Oak, who were the team playing at home at the time. So today's edition of Off the Cuff is dedicated to the 20th anniversary of May 9th. In the first part of the program, we will delve into how this event that has come to be known as Black Wednesday actually happened at Accra Sports Stadium. Why did it happen? What happened in the immediate aftermath? What has been the response of the sporting world and indeed the sports authorities over the last 20 years? What is the legacy of this, and whether any lessons at all have been learnt? Some of the key players around that time when the event occurred will be on this show. We'll be having eyewitnesses accounts from footballers who were on the field of play, the referee who was at the center of the match on May 9, 2001, plus the club administrators and other key people who were part of it. We'll talk to former government officials who were part of the efforts at consoling and helping the families who lost loved ones. The commission that was set up to investigate, we'll speak to members of that particular commission, and then we will look eventually at the current situation. So there's a lot to talk about today from all angles concerning this May 9th disaster. For us, it's not just about ceremonies, it's not just about speeches, but it's about what is the enduring effect of this, and whether we would learn from this and apply this in not just football, but generally how a lot of things are done in the country. I'd like to welcome you again to the show. I'm going for a break. When I come back, guests in the studio will be seated. Guests will be joining me over Zoom and over the telephone lines, and we'll be playing out some of the interviews we've also compiled over time. This is Off the Cuff on MX24. Thank you very much for making us a part of your evening. We'll be back shortly.
Celebrities should be able to understand that political seasons come and go.
If a woman is running for a CEO or a COO something, and then she's not married, then this woman is going to be rude.
Politics is the act of decision making.
You go to school and you learn a bunch of stuff that really you don't end up using. So then what's the purpose?
The quantum of graduates coming out of school every year, they realize that the job is inadequate.
Wagwan! What's happening in the world of entertainment?
And what's trending in the world of lifestyle?
Here's the way you're the point. Where you're the point.
Alright. Join me, Miss Drew.
And me, Kevoy. Mondays to Fridays, 10 a.m. for all the fun. The hot gossip.
So Ghana, I see everybody they post in front for his story.
The highlights.
With MX Breaks.
An idea for an app that is gonna center around fashion.
And everything that you need to know.
Little more, big up yourself.
Opinions are like onions. Everybody has one.
Abortion is a no-no. As a human being, you must take responsibility for all your actions and inactions. Your misjudgment shouldn't be enough grounds to take a life.
No. I disagree with you because look, if you do not legalize it, people will go to quack doctors anyway who might end up not just kill the baby, but the mother as well.
Why should I waste my time joining a long queue under the hot sun to vote for a political party, knowing very well that nothing would be achieved at the end of the day?
Something will be achieved. It's your civic responsibility to turn out to vote. Vote and vote for a good leader.
Governments need to cater to every graduate, diversify the economy, invest in other sectors.
But the government cannot do it all. That is why we need the youth to take up the mantle and set up their own businesses. That is how we will create economic viability.
Here on Opposing Views, we take your views, my views, and the views of the experts and put them in the right context for you, our discerning viewers.
What we do has consequences, intended and unintended. The decisions we make, the actions we bring, have weight.
When did it become a crime to succeed in this country?
We spotted a suspect trading pattern. All three firms have links to Bobby Axelrod.
Be careful out there.
Magical to watch. I loved it. Oh, I loved it.
Again, World of Dance, another level. This could be one of the best moments of my life.
I need you to remember we're scoring out of 100.
It's 18:30 GMT live from Silicon Square.
This is MX24 News.
Let's head straight into our stories.
At least 2 people have lost their lives this morning.
There are snakes and alligators inside the gutter.
Connect with us online and on air.
Press the pawn, student to pay fees in full.
We bring you the news as it happens.
The company is on the verge of collapse.
Call any of our many news reporters across the country and share your community stories. Make a date with us as we tell the fun, fearless, and factual stories across the length and breadth of the country. This is MX24 News.
Welcome back to our special edition of Off the Cuff here on MX24. We are reflecting on 20 years since the May 9th disaster, Black Wednesday as many people call it. On that particular evening, Kumasi Asante Kotoko faced Accra Heart of Oak at the Accra Sports Stadium. Kotoko had taken the lead in the first half through Lawrence Ejay. And then in the second half, in the latter stages of the game, Ishmael Ado scored 2 goals, which turned the match around in favor of Accra Heart of Oak. A section of the Kumasi Asante Kotoko fans actually thought that the second goal by Ishmael Ado was an offside goal. In the next few minutes, what you are going to hear is account of what happened on the field of play, because this all emerged because of decisions on the football field. And then we will find out the subsequent events and the chain of events that led to what we saw. So first, let's hear from Osei Boateng. Osei Boateng on the 9th of May 2001 was a goalkeeper for Kumasi Asante Kotoko. After that, we will hear from referee Jacob Wilson Say, who was the center referee on that fateful day.
I continue with the interview. I just want to say that one is a good thing of the past, which it should never be repeated on this soil again. But I think some of late, when you go to the stadium, these referees are just getting things back out of hands. So I don't see how best we can fight it. The memories that I've got about it is the goals. When we scored the first goal from Kotoko, it was about 15 minutes to go. And I was in the post, I was like, how many saves can I do before the end of the game? So I know we were carrying the day. So we considered 2, and that was a bad day for me. I think about it a whole time because that changed my life. On the 10th of May, after that incident, that was the first time I took alcohol in my life. I've never. So sometimes it brings that memory back. No, as a nation, as a whole, we've not learned anything about it. That is what I was saying about this hooliganism in the stadiums, and it's being caused mostly by these same referees that caused the same day that day, if it was. So I don't think we've learned much about it, much about it. There should be measures at the stadium that will just scrutinize these people that throw things onto the pitch. There should be a lot of measures from the FA. I learned recently they're trying to train stewards for every club is training stewards. Maybe it's in the right direction, but I don't think that alone can just do what we want as a nation, you know. And moreover, I want people to understand football is a game, lose, win, draw. Anything that happens, take it and go your way from the stadium. Since that incident, most of people have been scared of bringing their families back into the stadium. Because I, for instance, did have my wife and my 2 cousins from the UK on the stands, the same stand. So it could have hit. Just imagine. So we should just try to tolerate the results, you know, regardless.
That's goalkeeper Osei Boateng. He was imposed for Kumasi Asante Kotoko on the 9th of May 2001. Well, he points accusing fingers at the referee and his decision. So it's only fair that we give referee Joseph Wilson Say a fair hearing. Here's the referee recalling the events of May 9th, 2001, the decisions he made leading to the Accra Hearts of Oak goals, and his justification or otherwise for those decisions, among other considerations surrounding the events.
Much normal to the best of our knowledge, because we thought the crowd was there, and we see bigger crowds than us. So we look at it. There are some places you go, you know, Accra's president was bigger, but you can go to a place where it is smaller, and you see the crowds on you. But when you watch the match, I know what happened. The first ball, when the cross came, and then the ball was crossed. When it was crossed, Sameji, there was this foul. 4 hearts. My son's flagged. But they are on, so I gave an advantage. When I signal, he didn't see my signal. He was so old, but later when he saw me moving, he brought it down and moved. They thought it was offside. Samej just, this guy, Oseko first cross. Perfect. Then Ismaado moved from his half, crossed the line, outpaced the defendant, scored a beautiful goal. And as a referee who knows the law, I cannot deny him a perfect goal. And they thought, I knew that they were ignorant of the law, applied the rule to the latter.
So that's a referee, Jacob Wilson Say, expressing his opinion and you know why for him it was not an offside as the Kumasi Asante Kotoko fans contended. So we've heard from the goalkeeper from Kotoko, we've heard from the center line. Let's hear from somebody else who was on the field on that day for Accra Hearts of Oak, playing in defense And at the time, he was to be a future captain of Accra Hearts of Oak. Amankwa Mreku, one of legendary members of the 64 Battalion. He was on the line a moment ago. I'm going to get him back on the line. And the moment he joins, he's going to tell us from his perspective again. But before then, let's hear more from referee Jacob Wilson Say. Not only does he talk about the decision, but then he also talks about the other events that happened that day and afterwards.
Ghana police are not even trained properly on riot control. It was after May 9 that they gave them that training. They could have even stay aside, watch the crowd, see those destroying, stay outside, when they come, you grab them. Because I remember very well of this Rastafarian and his group. The same group where the people were seated there in the previous match, peeling off the seat. And the same people were there. You see, if you look at the number of people who died, there are a lot of people from Hearts, than Kotoko. So you ask yourself, why that? It is that Adekoka stand that people were bored with. That's where the problem came from. And that's where this house of I'm not the name of their group. Chapter O. Yes. That's where most of them had the incident. So it was unfortunate.
Referee Jacob Wilson Say, center referee on the 9th of May 2001, when Kumasi Asante Kotoko played Hearts of Oak. What was supposed to be an ordinary match turned into something else. We'll be hearing more eyewitness accounts of that incident in our bid to understand what happened and to analyze the legacy. Let me go over to the phone line. We had earlier mentioned Amankwa Mreku, who is with Accra Hearts of Oak. He would be joining us on the line. I think Amankwa is on the line. So, Amankwa, good evening.
There's too much noise at the stadium.
But I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yes, Amankwa, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So
I can hardly hear you, but I don't know whether we can go on.
We can go on. So first, I just want you to tell me what your memories are from the particular match against Kotoko on the 9th of May 2001. What do you remember?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to express my sincere condolences to all Ghanaians, and then as well as Kotoko and Hearts fans, as well as those who lost their relations and then friends as well. I think it's a memory that we wouldn't like to, dwell on, but since it has been part of us, we just have to talk about it and make sure, as we are remembering ourselves as of this day, we also have to, take that opportunity to also learn from it, to also kind of alert ourselves out of that kind of situation. And so, yes, we're still praying that nothing of that sort will maybe happen in Ghana football.
Amankwa, just a question. What happened at the stadium that day? Did it affect you in any way?
Yes, seriously. Yes, seriously, for me, it wouldn't have been, kind of forgetting pressure God, created us. I wouldn't have played ball anymore because I feel like I just told you, I feel like yes, I've committed kind of a suicide. You know what I'm saying? I've committed kind of a bloodshed. You know what I'm saying? But then, hey, since God created us with forgetfulness mind, spirit, definitely we have to go on with the game and then make sure we deliver for half of it. And so yes, one way or the other it affected us, but then we just have to continue doing our job.
Okay, just a final one. 20 years on, do you think people have changed their behavior in order to prevent these things from happening again?
Yeah, I think we've learned when maybe we don't experience this May 9th, but then we've also not learned when we still have some players, we still have some supporters who go to the stadium to kind of do this kind of vulgarism and then all sort of things that let's jeopardize the game. And so, yes, we don't learn, depending on the situation that occurs.
Amankwa, thank you very much.
Very welcome.
All right. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Amankwa Miriku, former captain of Accra Hearts of Oak. He was on the field that day on May 9th, 2001. We apologize for the background sound that at points drowned what he was saying. We'll be going on to hear from club administrators like Herbert Mensah, who was CEO of Kumasi Asante Kotoko at the time. We'll also be hearing from former president of the Hearts chapters, national chapters, Neil Armstrong. We're also hopefully going to speak to Aziz Futa, whose group, the Chapter O, were perhaps the biggest sufferers from May 9th, 2001. All in just a bit. But let me just introduce you to my studio guests. They have been here quietly following the, the testimonies from some of the eyewitnesses. Yeah, you yourself were at the stadium that day.
Yes, I was. I mean, it was a rainy day. I mean, I remember walking through the rain to go to the stadium, and it was a sad day. Really sad day.
Tell me your own experience. Where did you sit in the stadium, and at what point did you realize this had actually happened?
So I normally sit at the Osu stand when I go to the stadium. So it happened at the other stand. But when the game was going on, I mean, we all had, Hearts and Kotoko matches. There was usual banter. We laugh at ourselves. The game started. Kotoko scored. Kotoko fans were happy, and then Hearts scored. And all of a sudden, when the Ishmael Ado goal went in, Kotoko fans got upset. Started throwing all these seats down, and as usual, the police had to respond.
So, from where you were seated, and for those who do not know the Osu stand, and we are talking the old stadium, not the new stadium. This is the Ghana 99 stadium. Yeah. So, the Osu stand is the one with the back-facing access bank.
Yeah, with the back-facing
the sea, pretty much.
Yeah.
So not the sea.
The shell.
Osu and the filling station and all that. Yeah. That's where you were seated.
Yes.
5 minutes before the end, when they started throwing the seats, yanking the seats out and throwing them, you could see them from the Osu stand.
In fact, I could see them, and then when the police responded, actually, I was there, and you could, because the stadium is airy, when they fired the tear gas, it was also coming towards us. So that was what caused me to leave the stadium early, because, I mean, the tear gas was
so you guys on the Osu stand, you were not facing directly the tear gas canisters that were being thrown.
Because
how did people exit from your
I mean,
side?
there was a rush.
Even at your end?
Yes, there was a rush. Because when the tear gas was being fired, I mean, normal human being, you would run for your life. I mean, you would not want to be there. So we all rushed out, like the way they're rushing out.
Yeah,
we had to rush out because it was sad.
Yeah. But then at what point did you realize so many people had died?
I didn't know. I saw people, there was a stampede, so I realized that people would get hurt.
Yeah.
But that day there was a match, I think Real Madrid, Dortmund.
There was
a championship.
So you were in a hurry to get home?
So I was in a hurry to get home and go and watch that match. So I thought maybe just some people had just got it. So it was only when you couldn't even get a car, so I had to walk from the stadium to the house in Osu before I realized that people had died.
Farouk, where were you when this happened?
I was a little boy. I remember those days I was in a boarding school, and so when I came back home, we used to have these fanciful radio sets, Palito. Yeah, so because I couldn't take mine to school, when I get back home, that's what I basically play with. So I was on listening to commentary, At that time, my uncle is a strong House of Folk fan, so he's been going to the stadium a lot. I remember my grandfather told him not to go, and he was pretty much upset. I don't know if some people realized what was going to happen, because I know a few people who were warned not to go to the stadium, and they were not happy with it, but eventually they realized that maybe those who advised them could see something they couldn't. Yeah. Maybe the tension in the air and all the build-up to the game made people think that something untoward was going to happen. And so I was listening to the game, then there was breaking news, so I had to tune to TV3, so that's when I saw dead bodies being carried, and, it was such a mess, I couldn't believe it. So that's how I experienced it.
And, just to capture the tension, when I spoke to referee Jacob Wilson today, he told me that 3 center line referees were selected for that match. And before the match, they went into the referee's room. The match commissioner was there. A representative from each of the clubs were there, and they balloted to decide which of the 3 center-line referees. And each of them were eligible to referee the match. And he's the one who was, to put it, unlucky to pick, the paper that said you are going to referee. And that's how come he ended up being the center line. And that gives you an indication of the sheer tension. Jerome Ocho has joined us via Zoom. Hi, Jerome.
Hi, good evening to you, Farouk and Yao.
Thank you very much for joining us. Before I give you a bite at this issue, let's listen to Herbert Mensah. He was CEO for Kumasi Asante Kotoko at the time. For a few years before that, he had tried to break the hegemony of the 64 Battalion without success. And this was one of those chances Kumasi Asante Kotoko had. They had a pretty good team, and they were quite confident that they could beat Accra Hearts of Oak. Here are his memories on what happened and the effect it has had on him since then.
In my case, I certainly lived the issue of May 9th. I think being in charge of Kotoko at the time, being at the stadium, being called up because there was chaos within the stadium itself, and going through the exercise of trying to take control of a tragedy in real time, to carrying the bodies, to everything that entailed with that, is something that will always be there, that is bound to change you unless you do not have humanity. We've helped put their children into school, we've helped medically, we've helped when they want to just have a chat. We've helped so materially, physically, spiritually, with a lot of the families. And when we meet every May 9th or days before or days after, it gives us a time to share memories and talk strength and see how children are now growing up. It's a beautiful moment, and it's something that I really am very glad that, even though I just did it initially, because I have a sense of what we need to do for our fallen heroes generally, it then meant that every year I started doing it until now. This is my 20th year. I think, of course, it could have. There are many factors that brought about the tragedy this May 9th. We've all decided not to talk about the footballing side, but certainly I think things have improved in terms of what it takes to run a football match. But the actions of those involved that day, the firing of the tear gas down a singular stairwell, the locking of the stairwell at the bottom so that people fleeing could not get out, that was just simply horrible. You looked at a lack of everything. Who locked that gate, for heaven's sake? Who locked the gate?
20 years on, we're asking the same question. Who locked the gates? Under whose instructions were those gates locked when a match had already ended? Jerome, what are your own memories? Where were you when this happened?
I was a little boy in Kufrodia. I remember I watched the events on TV. I had followed the game on radio. Like Yao said, it was a rainy day almost everywhere. And in the evening, when we all felt that, look, Kotoko was not coming back into the game and we had lost, naturally I felt bad. But I think that feeling changed completely when I switched. Was it Metro TV or one of the TV stations?
Oh, TV3
I saw
mostly.
I saw dead bodies being live on TV and people reporting from the stadium saying all manner of things. I also remember tuning into Joy FM late evening, and look, it was so gripping. I don't think I made sense out of what happened until the next day when, was it Daily Graphic or Ghanaian Chronicle, really gave chilling details of what happened. And it is something that's going to live with us for a long time to come. I don't think we've learned anything out of what happened. It's brilliant watching Herbert Mensah do this, over 20 years. I don't know if there is any individual, not even the state, that has been that committed to families of the victims. It goes to show that indeed those who died needlessly, and there is there's nothing more we can say than to say that something ought to be done to deal with violence in our game. I look at what happened. I mean, what happens every season, and I feel that we're just joking. I mean, we're not doing anything to change the state of affairs. Just this afternoon, the Dwarfs Legon City game, I don't know whether they were able to finish, but at some point the referee said, look, I'm not coming back because I don't feel safe. And that is a big enough statement to those who manage the game here that violence still remains in our game, and it has all it takes to destroy the game. Sometimes when we talk, people feel we are sounding too negative, we are not looking at the positive side of things. But look, if people will leave home just to go and have fun, and through no fault of theirs, they won't come back. Nobody can justify that. I know that in life, a lot of things happen. I mean, you can be in your room like I'm here, and the whole building can collapse on you. That is life. But where through someone's negligence or through someone's deliberate attempt to end your life, I mean, your life ends, we don't have to allow those things to happen. It doesn't happen anywhere. Recently, I was reading an article, I think 20 years after a similar incident in South Africa, the Ellis Park incident. Yes, and they were talking about some strides they've made in dealing with violence. And I tell you, theirs may not be as tragic as ours, but losing 47 people at a football stadium, it's so big enough that you cannot overlook it. And look at some of the things they have done. About 3-4 years ago, when some Kaiser Chiefs fans, went riot, destroying TV cameras and attacking anything in sight, 3-4 of them were jailed. They were arrested and jailed.
Yeah.
I don't believe we can ever end violence in football or in life itself. But that's why we have laws. There should be, our laws should be able to deal with those things. And for me, that's not what we are doing in Ghana.
Yeah, Jerome, just hang on for me for just a moment. Let me move swiftly to Abdulaziz Aziz Futa, former chairman of Chapter O. Everybody knows Aziz, National Supporters Union. He's been following football with his heart and with his mind and with his whole body for years now. Unfortunately, Chapter O, to which Aziz belonged, were the hardest hit by what happened. And I wonder if 20 years since it occurred, Aziz, has the pain in any way subsided among people who lost loved ones, among the Chapter O fans?
Thank you very much. The pain will still live with us until we die. So these are our colleagues, just like what my brother Jerome is talking about. These are our colleagues that we sit together, we pray like in Ramadan like this.
Hello, Aziz.
Thinking about how to folk, I love football. Just go and watch a match where you lost about 36 of your members, your brothers. It's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Aziz, I've always wondered, why did so many people from Chapter O died when it was the Kumasi Asante Kotoko fans who were rioting, at least as we could see from the TV screens?
You are asking, come again?
I'm asking, I've always wondered how so many of your people died when they weren't the ones who started it.
Yeah, because of, if by then, Accra Stadium by then, the incident started at where now.
Hello, Aziz.
And then we are at the,
Okay, we would have to call Aziz back. I think we're having challenges with Aziz's line. But he was explaining again the dynamics of what happened and why so many of his people died. But as Jerome is saying, and we'll be looking at the legacy, but quite clearly, when this happened, this was the fourth major incident within the space of 2 months that had occurred on the African continent. For those who follow, they would know that the first one happened. So there was Ellis Park that had happened earlier on in April. People had died. Over 40 people had died in South Africa. And then there was an incident in Lubumbashi, in Congo DR. 1 person died, 39 people got injured. And then in La Côte d'Ivoire, there had been crowd violence in Abidjan as well. And quite a number of people had died. So there were signs pointing to all these things. And the moment I get Aziz back, I'll continue that story. But how did we not, everybody says this should have been done, that should have been done. How could we have been sitting on a time bomb and we didn't realize that this could happen?
As usual, as we are in this country, we are very reactive and never proactive. So most of
you just hold on. Let me go back to Aziz. Aziz, we lost you because the line was a bit unclear. So you were making a statement as to how so many of the Chapter O people died.
Yes, because as I was saying by then, we are, formerly where they call Adikokastan.
Yeah.
That is where we be sitting. We are right behind the post and we are close to the exit. So when our brothers from the other side, Kotoko, start throwing water, breaking chairs, throwing it on the page, the police start firing tear gas. So what we did was, because we are in the mood of jubilation, but when they start firing the tear gas, we have to pause and start begging them. So they directed the tear gas on us. And most of our brothers, including myself, we have to run for our lives. So that is how come we lost about 36 of our brothers who lost their life on the May 9th. So it wasn't an easy incident at all. It wasn't an easy incident at all. And my brother, today we are talking about May 9th. And May 9th is 20 years today. Imagine Aziz Futa by then as a young man, 25 to 28 years, being the chairman of Chapter O. Those that are going to stadium now, by then, some of them are 5 years, some of them are 10 years, some of them are 15 years. Their parents even don't allow them to come to stadium. And they are the majority now. They are watching our games now. They are moving, they are following House of Hope, they are following Kotoko, they are following Mediama and the rest in the other center. They have never seen anything close to May 9th. But here we are as a country, here we are. We don't talk about it unless a year. A year we spend about 2 hours on the program and that ends it. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. And today, I can tell you, there's a guy who called Zach. He lost one of his hands in May 9th. He lives in Newtown. He's a Chapter O member. One of Chapter O member who is our deputy secretary, Siman, has a serious problem at his back. As I'm talking to you now, he's in Japan, having treatment at his back. All these things have happened, and as a nation, a football country, and we don't think around it, and we don't want to put measures that can stop this thing happening. It is very sad, my brother. It is very sad. House of Folk is playing today, but I'm not at the stadium, even though I love my club. So when you are introducing me being passionate of heart, that is before. I cannot be so passionate. After May 9th, I have to advise myself. I love this game. But there's no security, there's no insurance, there's nothing there that protects me for this game. There's nothing there that protects me for this game. So why should I go and just waste my life just because I love Accra House of Folk or I love football? This is some of the things that as a nation we need to be taking a serious look on those things. Other than that, my brother, before you realize, our stadiums will be more than empty, because stadium shouldn't be a death trap. Stadium should be something that, excuse me, stadium should be something that I can take my family. I can tell you today, all my pictures that I have for football, I hide it for my children because I don't want them to see. Even though I appreciate football, it is football that gives me the platform that I have. What I am, what I have become today, is because of football, House of Folk. But I can't go about 20 years ago and just go and waste my life again. And a lot of people, there are a lot of people, a lot of parents come to Nima and see the brief family. The son of my vice chairman, he's 20 years today. He has never seen his father.
Yeah.
He has never seen his father. He's 20 years today.
Yeah.
So it is not something that you have to be joking with it.
Yeah.
It is not something that you have to be joking with it at all. It's something that you have to be serious about it. Look at the way we commemorate the May 9th. No workshop to educate the supporters for the new rules of the game, for them to know a referee may take a certain decision because you don't have those ideas. You are not like you are not introduced to the new law, so you don't know it. So the referee will also, and the fans will start throwing things on the pitch.
Aziz, thank you. I pulled you out of the mosque. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
You're welcome.
That's Aziz Futa. Makes some, and I'll throw it to you all. He says there's obviously a disconnect between the current generation and what happened to it. They either were too young to notice or don't care or have not seen anything like that. That's why they behave like that. And he feels we haven't done enough. And so for lots of people, the stadium is no longer a safe place. So I'm going to ask all of you, starting with you, Yao. Why do you think we still... I mean, he says you yourself said it. I mean, you can't eliminate violence completely. Mm-hmm. Why do we still have these happening? Jerome just reported on the Dwarfs match and the referee saying he might not continue the match.
I mean, I think that as he said something profound, he said there has been no education of the fans. And I think it falls on the doorsteps of the FA, but also on the doorsteps of the clubs. The clubs have, Kotoko has its circles, has its chapters. What do they speak about when they go for their meetings? Because that's an opportunity for you to organize workshops, to explain the rules of you can get a referee to come in and teach their fans.
Yeah.
The FA can do it on a holistic level. Because you see, if we don't, there will be marking time, and then there will be another time bomb. See the way, even in our junior leagues, they are beating referees here and there. It's like we don't care. And that's the sad part. People who have lost their life, and we are supposed to use that let's take it that they have sacrificed themselves for us. But we have to use that to be better people.
If it was a sacrifice, nobody really is appreciating that sacrifice, isn't
well,
it? If that was a sacrifice, nobody really appreciates it.
Yes, I mean, it's like whatever happened many years, after that, people really do not care. You can't really tell how that has influenced lives. Because, for example, as a young boy, what I saw there, if I were to be a consistent stadium goer, I'm not sure I'm going to be involved in any of those things, because what I saw that day were enough lessons to me. I think that some of the stakeholders have not learned enough lessons. For example, you have a lot of the club administrators inciting fans indirectly on radio in the build-up to matches. I mean, referees may misbehave. They are not divine beings. They will make mistakes. But I think ultimately those whose actions cause problems at the stadium are the fans. It's when the fans misbehave that the security will come in. then there will be lapses as to whether they are trained enough to handle crowd violence or not. But it always starts with the fans. Yes, referees will misbehave, but how do we handle it? And I think the law too has not helped either, because if the laws, or we had a system to be able to zero into people who misbehave and the law subsequently deal with them, a lot of people won't do this. I cast my mind back to 2011, Charles Douna Hearts versus Liberty. 2 years ago, Cape Coast Stadium, Drafts versus House of Folk. A few years ago, I was at a Cross Sports Stadium. Yes, I was at I saw a referee being carried from, I've forgotten the name of the referee. He was beaten to pulp. I remember in the Western region, a referee was beaten to death in a lower division game. So clearly, I mean, a lot of the things that have happened post May 9, 2001 clearly shows that we haven't learned enough lessons. It's either we don't care, or we think that we have a laissez-faire system that whatever you do, nobody can do anything to you. You just misbehave at the stadium, you pick your car and go home, and that is it.
Jerome, a couple of years back, there was a guy who had his eye shot, right?
Yeah. Only last year. It was
last year.
Yeah, it was January 12 last year.
That incident showed that the fans had not learned, and the police themselves had probably also not improved in any way.
Exactly, and look, I will not take on the police, but some of the things are so obvious that you cannot even turn a blind eye to it. Supporters' education is key.
Yeah.
But even in those countries where you would say there is greater civility and education and all that, they still misbehave. In England, in Russia, in Germany, those places, there are hooligans. But the law deals with them.
Yeah.
That is the part which is lacking in our game. For instance, this afternoon, the Dwarfs Legon Cities match. If the referee had cause to feel insecure, the question you ask is, where was security at that time? How does it happen that people can go to the stadium and do anything they want and nothing happens? And I will continue saying this. The GFA, I don't think is concerned. They are not.
Jerome,
everything they say.
Jerome, please just hold on to your thoughts. You would recall that immediately after that incident, there was the GBA at the time called on the president to set up a presidential commission, and the president heeded that call and set up a presidential commission that had the eminent lawyer, my former boss, Mr. Samu Kujito, as the head of the commission. Other members were Professor Fuswa Ma, Professor Ajimambedu Akosa, Professor Ekuya Kwenyehia, and Ken Bediako. And we are privileged to have one of the most senior lawyers in the country and most eminent lawyers in the country, Mr. Samu Kujito. I've had to bother him with this call this time of the day to ask. Uncle Sam, thank you very much for joining us. 20 years after the May 9th disaster. Hello, Uncle Sam.
Yeah, I'm listening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
All right, okay. I think yes, it's 20 years since.
Yes, it has been 20 years. And just a simple question. The work that you did, do you think it has borne fruits 20 years down the line?
Well, it's difficult for me to say because every year when there is anniversary comes, they will call me, then some will be asking me what has happened. And I say, why are you asking me? I mean, you should ask the sports ministry, the sports council, the football association. You should ask all of them what they did with the report. Because at one time, someone came to me and said they couldn't even find a copy of the report in the archive. And I said that is not possible because we make several copies of the document to ensure that all those who are affected or the institutions involved all receive copies which we presented to the president. So what have they done about it? How did they talk about the implementation of the numerous recommendations that were made about safety, security, the confusion that was arising of sending policemen with guns to stadiums, why they don't have trained security experts to be at the stadium to ensure about crowd behavior, crowd control. All that were part of the recommendations that we made. Have they been implemented? I have no idea.
So, if that is the case, do you feel that perhaps all this hard work went down the drain? Because over the last 20 years, there have been several incidents that should not happen if the Commission's recommendations were implemented, indeed.
Well, let's put it this way. I and my colleagues had a national assignment. We fulfilled it to the best of our ability. Indeed, we should even thank the British government because they sponsored us to go to Britain, to visit various areas, to see how they are organized, how the kind of personnel they employ, and the kind of even chairs that are used, because we realized that chairs were used here where they shot took off a rubber bullet and the chairs got broken. And some of those chairs were the ones they actually flipped to throw about. So we made a recommendation on each one of those issues with even photographs to show them what we have seen and what we think can be done. So I would say that we fulfill our responsibility, because if some of you do not know, at the time of that appointment, I was serving as the director of Rotary International, which required me to be traveling all around the globe. But I had to sacrifice to be present here so as to participate in that matter. We were given a short deadline within which we had to fulfill it. And we did that in record time. What happened in South Africa, it took them a longer time. What happened in Britain, it took them a very long time. We did that hours in a record time. And yet, I don't know. I should be asking you, the media, what you did. But why you always wait until that's an anniversary and then you call me?
Very well noted, Uncle Sam. Just a final one. And you know, because of how eminent you are, it's always good to take your perspective on these things. How would you advise going forward? I mean, as you said, and I spoke to Ken Bediako, who said Uncle Sam was very, very thorough. I remember a quotation from the Commission's report where you stated that there appeared to be a conspiracy of silence, for instance, among the police. Afterwards, there was prosecution. Nothing came out of that. In the future, how should the government, media, everybody approach this in a way to make these processes more beneficial to the nation as compared to what we have seen over the last 20 years after your report was generated?
Well, in the media, sometimes you call yourself the third of the fourth arm, and yet you don't live up to it. I think this is where the whole danger is. Because if you had followed up, take the report, and you keep asking the institution what they are doing about it, what has happened to this, why the police cover themselves instead of exposing wrongdoing among themselves. If you had followed that consistently, because governance is a very complex subject, in the sense that often when something happens, we say, well, what has the president done? And sometimes I say, the president is only one human being. If we as citizens and institutions like the media don't follow and assist, question, chastise, complain, if we don't do that, then nothing happens. We will be just where we are. But I think this country has come a long way since independence. We should be the standard bearers for the rest of the country. I think that is our responsibility, because we are the first south of the Sahara to become independent. And I tell people that God doesn't do anything in vain. We must have a deliberate reason for doing that. So let us live up to that responsibility, which I think is ours.
Uncle Sam, thank you very much for your time. I called you at short notice, and yet you spoke to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's Mr. Sam Okudzeto, very, very senior lawyer, my former boss. He led the commission that did the work 20 years ago, and it looks like it's been flushed down the drain. So let's examine ourselves. Jerome, you were on early on, and Mr. Okudzeto is saying we haven't done our job in ensuring that the recommendations are implemented. we haven't held the people in authority to account enough.
I agree with him because, you know, sometimes you start and along the line you get tired because, I mean, things will be put in your way and you are likely to get discouraged. But the truth is, even if the media haven't done what we are supposed to do, it gets to a point where you cannot do anything. If I go to a stadium to cover a game and I see fans beating a referee, the best I can do is to come back and report and demand that the law works. I am not a law enforcement officer. Exactly. We've gotten to the point where we must punish hooligans. I think that's the only missing link in our game. About a week ago, I was at the Robert Mensah Stadium, and one of the gates was so narrow that I was wondering how we could construct a stadium like that. Then someone referred me to the fact that, look, we don't play here again. So those things may have been dealt with, but we are left with the part where hooligans will have to be arrested and punished. Just before number 12 came, there was a game between Mediama and Elmina Sharks. A referee was stoned. He was stoned. Pictures I saw a referee lying down with blood oozing from his head. Up till now, we don't know who threw that stone to that referee. And these things happen. I was just talking about the incident that happened in Kumasi where a fan was shot in the eye.
Yeah.
It's fair to say that fan wasn't misbehaving, but some other fans caused that misbehavior, which led to the police shooting him. I'm saying that it shouldn't happen that fans should go to the stadium, just do anything they want, and nothing happens. I am of the opinion that if we begin arresting and putting these fans before the law, some of them or some fans will learn from that misbehavior. That is not what we are doing. We just allow these things to happen. We talk about it and it ends there. I expect the FA to begin talking to the police, engaging them in a manner they have never done before, so that one or two people who misbehave at the stadium are arrested and punished, just to serve as an example to others who may want to misbehave in future.
Well, I'll go back to some aspects of the report, but let's talk about current events. And you're just drawing my attention to the fact that there are allegations about Alhaji Guza.
Yeah.
Please tell me what you know.
So it's been reported that Alhaji Guza was so incensed that he walked into the referee's room and assaulted them. We are still waiting for information. But if it is that there's any ounce of truth in it, I mean, even walking to the referee's room in itself is not allowed, because I mean, and for him to go
on May
9th, it will be
at the same venue.
It will be very.
I'm shocked.
So we are waiting to get more information.
It's unconfirmed, but we have strong cause to believe that this actually happened. And we are talking two different issues: the issue in relation to dwarfs, and then this King Faisal issue.
I mean, it's terrible on this particular day. And these are people who were old enough to have experienced whatever happened.
Yeah.
Very senior people who at a point were very close to the top position at the FA.
He was almost an FA president.
So clearly, that's what I was saying. A lot of the key stakeholders who should be pushing, the change at the stadium are the ones really, poisoning the minds of the fans. Because if you're a fan and your CEO is doing this or your Brankola is doing this, I mean, you are poised to do even more than that when you're at the stadium and are not happy with the decision by the referee. So clearly, a lot of the people we should be expecting to be spearheading this particular campaign are disappointing us. And that's the reason why the youth are not changing. They still go to the stadium and misbehave.
And not to butt in, just recently, right, there was one club administrator who threatened another club administrator that if you come to my place, we'll beat you.
We'll beat you.
I mean, if you have a club administrator, have the effrontery to tell another administrator that don't come to this match, because if you come, we'll beat you. What would the fans do?
Yeah. Interestingly, Jerome, we thought COVID would diminish some of these things because of the cutback in terms of the numbers at the stadium. And it's not minimized anything. We saw at Elmina Sharks Stadium. You know, people actually come onto the
Yeah.
pitch to attack the referee a few weeks ago.
It comes back to the point I made earlier. Where is security at the stadium?
It's taken us 20 years to even come up with the idea of stewards. And as Mr. Okujeto said, they were sent to the UK to see what happened at Hillsborough, to see all those. They put it in the recommendation.
Yeah.
It's actually in there.
You see, sometimes I don't believe that we actually believe in what we say. We don't. We just say things and get away with it. I just cited the South African example. If nothing at all has happened in South Africa, the article I read on the Ellis Park recently, goes to show that not so much have been done. That is what they think. But I'm saying that if not for anything at all, there are stories to the effect that when Kaiser Chiefs fans misbehaved in a PSL game, 4 of them were jailed. 4 of them who destroyed television cameras were jailed. We've been in Ghana here. Some Kotoko fans even attacked Metro TV some time ago. What happened? None of them was put before the law. And sometimes when I speak like this, I have some friends in Kotoko who say, no, you like picking on some of these things. But see, if we do not catch some of these guys and put them before the law, that is why they will continue doing it. Because they know nothing will happen.
Yeah.
Nothing is going to happen. The last time Bekum Arsenals were in the Ghana Premier League, they attacked the Kotoko bus. Some players were injured. I remember Joka, he was hurt. There was a stone on his forehead. I mean, someone just threw a stone at him. There were military men there. There were policemen there. Nothing happened. As long as we continue to have the situation where fans think they can go and do these things, and sometimes they have club officials behind them who go behind and even plead with the police to set them free. As long as these things happen, we are still going to have violence in our game. I would look forward to this, to the day where club officers will stop, stay behind some of these guys who misbehave and allow the law to take its course. And the police should show commitment to fighting violence in our game. I don't think we've done enough.
Let me throw a jab at you to say that the evidence, the behavior you see on match days are actually cultivated when you have supporters being sent to training grounds to sack coaches from training grounds.
I don't.
Those same people will take the authority on match day and feel they are capable of doing anything.
No, of course.
Yeah.
I don't dispute that at all.
Yeah.
And that is one of the problems I had those days at Kotoko, trying to call out even the management for being behind those things. I mean, look, we work for people. I understand that, but sometimes we should have the modesty to admit that certain things will come back and harm all of us.
It's true.
You know, you might think, oh, this is just a game that I'm not involved, but that hooligan can go somewhere else and cause trouble for you, even when you don't know. You know, so I just feel that all of us, I mean, the FA, the media, the police particularly, have not shown genuine commitment to fighting violence. I cannot walk on the street of Accra with a club in my hand and hit someone and come back home. It is not going to happen. Either that person will cause my arrest or people around will ensure that I'm also dealt with. But I tell you this, you can do the same thing at any of our football venues and you come back home and sleep. Next morning you go to work, nothing will happen. It shouldn't be the case. Unfortunately, that is the case. And I will keep saying these things. As long as hooligans are not punished, they will come back to the stadium and misbehave.
Well, you see, you can't describe criminality different at the stadium and describe it differently on the street. Criminality is criminality wherever it takes place. That's essentially the point Jerome is making. I'm going to go for a break. When I come back, we'll wrap up our discussions on May 9th, the legacy and what we've learned and what must be changed going forward. So we'll begin to look into the future and see if anything is likely to change and what some of the practical things that can be done are. And then we'll wrap up our memorial and go into regular programming and talk some sports. We'll be back shortly after this break. This is our special anniversary programming to remember 20 years of May 9, 2001, here on MX24. This is Off the Cuff. My name is Samuel Bartels. I'll be back shortly.
Because you pay attention. Because you know more than one angle. And see more than one opportunity. We bring you Build a Bet. Multiple legs as a single bet on one game. Raising the odds and elevating your experience.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet responsibly, not for persons below 18 years.
Welcome back to our May 9th disaster special here on MX24, here on Off the Cuff. And we've looked at various angles of this. We've had Mr. Samuel Okudzeto join us. He was the head of the commission established by President Kufuor at the time. We've also heard from people who were on the field of play. We've heard from Kosko's goalkeeper at the time. We've heard from Amankwa Americo of Accra Hearts of Folk. We've heard from center referee Wilson Say. And we've heard from Herbert Mensah, who was chairman of Kumasi Asante Kosko. We've heard from Abdulaziz Futa, who was chairman of Chapter O at the moment. At this stage, I just want to zero in on a particular recommendation that came out of the commission report. And the commission, in its hearings, and remember they had to do their work within a month, stated that there was a clear conspiracy of silence among the policemen who appeared before the commission, which was intended to subvert the course of justice. Because none of the policemen were willing to admit they were the ones who fired the first shot. Now, in the government's white paper, following the submission of the commission's reports, government endorsed the overall findings, especially regarding the culpability of the police officers. Government then stated that it takes a firm view that the police must bear primary responsibility. Now, 6 out of the contingent of 70 policemen who were at the Accra Sports Stadium were put on trial. And these were ASPs John Asare Nami, Fachi Kumi, Frank Iwa, Francis Ayi, and then ASP Benjamin B. Bakomora. And the person who was in charge, the commander at the time, was Chief Superintendent Kranti Minta. The prosecution was led by Anthony Jembibi, Principal State Attorney. The defense lawyer was Atachia, and the judge was Justice Yawapao. Well, unfortunately, people had high expectations, but in the end, the police were charged, and no one was punished. And people felt very badly about that, as Uncle Sam was saying. They had pointed to failings by the police. And I remember reading a piece written in a journal by Kwesi Enin, of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Center, who pointed out that the seeds for this were sown in December 2000 when Hearts of Oak played against Esperance, and tear gas was fired into the crowd at the time. I saw Fawaz Zok on a stretcher, almost naked, being stretchered out, and a number of people had to be taken out of the stadium. Nothing was done. And referee Wilson Say confirmed that in the months before May 9th, there had been a match at Accra Sports Stadium where fans had uprooted seats and thrown onto the tartan tracks. Nothing was done. And it all came together on there. The commission noted that there were policemen who had gone there who should not have been there because they were not on duty, and that the police overreacted. And at a point, the reaction appeared to be more punitive than for crowd control purposes. We've come a long way since, and I have to say that we tried, but we haven't been able to get any police to respond to all these. But football and policemen coexist because of this security issue. How do we ensure that this marriage bears fruits? Jerome feels that the police should be able to stamp their authority. But in doing so, how do you balance it? Stamping your authority and ensuring there's law and order without going overboard and in order to prevent something like May 9 from happening?
Well, I think it's all with training. And I expect that the FA will engage the police to find out. And you see, I always say we are always reactive and not proactive. There should be scenario testing done by the police. And this should come from the FA engaging them. If this happens, this is what we'll do. If this happens, so that the police are well trained and prepared. So any policeman who goes to the stadium knows that if situation A happens, this is the response. If situation B happens. But we don't do that. We will sit down, another incident will happen, fans will misbehave, and we'll go back to type, put tear gas in. That's how we've been behaving in this country, and I don't think, maybe we talk too much and we don't do anything.
Farouk, sometimes it's a bit of too little and sometimes it's too much. We've seen venues where, and I remember some of the referees telling me there's just one policeman. And the whole time when you're on the pitch, you are mindful of the fact that there's just one policeman. And any decision you take can be used against you because you don't have enough protection. And then there are the instances like May Night where there were just too many. And they had bullets and they overreacted. Where do we find the balance?
I think, like Yao mentioned, it's a matter of adequate training. I am not an expert in police training, but the experts have mentioned that there is a deficiency in terms of Ghana police handling crowd violence. They've consistently mentioned that servicemen need to be trained adequately to handle such situations. I don't know where their level is now, but I do admit that Ghana police has come a long way since May 9, 2001. I guess that in terms of the training, the acquisition of the right equipment to deal with such issues, they should be on top of it now. We shouldn't wait till another thing happens for us to come back to this issue. Other than that, then we are not a serious nation trying to make any progress. Yeah. We should be learning from our mistakes.
So what you're seeing on your screen is on May 9. This is the Kotoko incident at the Kumasi Stadium. Yeah,
yes. So, and the fans too should be able to have enough confidence in the police. They shouldn't take the law in their own hands. I think sometimes they misbehave because they feel the police doesn't do enough. That's how come referees will be on the pitch and they start running for their lives, looking for the next available exit, even though they are policemen at the stadium. So clearly there is some level of mistrust, and we have to gain that. We should believe in the security men. The fans should also comport themselves. They should feel that when you have these security men around at the stadium, they are there for a purpose, and that purpose is to protect you and to ensure that lives are not lost, miserably like what has happened in the past.
Jerome, question to you. It's taken us 2 years to come up with the idea of stewards. And mind you, stewards have not come up because of crowd violence, but because of COVID-19. And even then, this was after people had flouted the rules. And in reaction, we decided to come up with this. So yes, we may have stumbled into this. Is there any way in which this system can complement what the police does at the various stadiums? And is it likely in any way to mitigate the violence, especially against the backdrop of what we've heard today? Club chairmen who go to allegedly assault referees in the dressing room, and people who threaten other chairpersons or other club officials, among other things. How do we get a mix that works for us?
There is very little the stewards are going to do, because those mandated by law are not even doing what is expected of them. I wonder how those who more or less have a moral duty can enforce anything. And I agree with you. It starts with leadership. It starts with the club leaders. Like you were saying in the Kotoko case, if there's evidence to show that a management setup will hide behind a hooligan to go and drive a coach from a training field, why wouldn't that hooligan take up the fight to beat a referee in a proper match situation? If you have a club official storming the dressing room or the changing room of a referee to attack him, what will a steward do? It will have to take the police. It will have to take the FA to pump some sense into the leadership of the clubs to let them know that, look, these things tarnish the game. It will take the police to also let these people know that there are laws in this country which must be made to work, and so you'll be punished for breaking those laws. The stewards don't have enough power. They don't have any power. Even some of them are more or less like the football fans we are talking about. There was one recent game, I think in Obuasi, where the stewards were seen watching the game and in fact trying to coach the players on the field. I mean, if stewards are turning into coaches, how can they even deal with it?
Jerome,
how can they deal with it?
Jerome, you mess up. Jerome, you mess up. It's a bit like what they call baby police. The national service guys and the standing guys when they direct traffic. And how sometimes people realize they are not the real MTTD people. They just drive past them.
I mean, I think we just have to be truthful to ourselves.
Yeah.
I believe this should be much easier to deal with. Just get the police to work at the hotspots. We know there are some centers. I have been to Sogakope so many times. There isn't a time, there hasn't been any time I have felt threatened.
Yeah.
Sometimes, even in Kumasi, even in Accra, I don't feel safe because I know what can happen. So we know the centers that are the trouble spots, and we can detail more policemen to those areas when we know that there's a tendency of his behavior erupting. We know what to do, just that we lack the commitment to do it.
You know what, Jerome? I'll just take a few calls. We'll advertise the phone calls and say, if you lost somebody, if you know somebody who lost somebody, or you were at the stadium on that day, or you've been a victim of violence at any of the centers, or perhaps you yourself are a famous hooligan, I want you to call. We need to get this issue addressed. And whilst I invite the phone call, I'll take my last expert witness. Mr. Kembe Diakon is a veteran sports journalist. He started covering the Ghana Premier League in 1958. And he's covered it. Even now, he still has an interest in the league in his 80s. And he published a compendium about the Ghana League from 1958 to 2012. He was also a member of the Okujeto Committee as a person representing the football fraternity. He also shared his thoughts on the recommendations that the commission came out with.
They were not happy because they thought we were putting every blame on them, but that was our recommendation. So I think later on, instead of charging them for murder, I think it was turned into manslaughter. Yeah. No, personally I wasn't, because in the midst, time flies. So maybe after time heals anger. So maybe it was okay to our recommendation that it should be charged for murder, because there are 127 people dying, and that was the first time this was happening in Ghana and so far in Africa. So we were actually checked. I wouldn't say we were right, but I think it was a fair recommendation. Well, they had a gate man, and we questioned him. He said he opened the gate 15 minutes before time, but evidence proved that no, the gate was locked. So people went there and then it was stopped. Just like the floodlights. It was detected that he put up the floodlights 15 minutes after the incident. But he was denying. The deputy, the gate man, he wouldn't say, he didn't open the gate. The gate was locked. I think it was sanctioned. I'm not too sure. Whatever. Whether dismissed or something, I've forgotten but we did recommend, we did state that he was responsible for the chaos when people were rushing. Everybody was rushing out only to find the gates locked. Up to now, I'm not sure whether we officially know the capacity of our various stadiums. Because we are building 40,000. Because I can say on authority that when we had clubs organizing the Africa Cup Championship themselves, they could print about 60,000, 70,000. We got everybody at the stadium. So tell me Accra Stadium is 40,000. It's a bit doubtful.
Mr. Kembe Diakon, venerable member of the Inky fraternity, journalist who's covered Ghana football since 1958. I had Emmanuel on the call from Takrady. I don't know if Emmanuel is still on. Hi, Emmanuel. Good evening.
Oh, good evening, brother.
Thank you very much for calling in. What are your thoughts as we remember May 9th?
Yes. It's exactly 20 years ago, and at that time, I have made my mind to go and watch the match. After I went to bank to collect money so that after that I can go to the stadium. And very unfortunate for me, the cashier said the signature is not the same. So I was detained there. So I was not able to go to the stadium to watch the match. That was my failure. That day, if we told me so, maybe, because anytime that I go to Accra Sports Stadium, I sit behind the Taktao supporters because I like the music and everything. And I was so sad that very day, and my interest for football vanished because of this, the movement. So it's something that they need to work on it. And what Irene said, it is true that the supporters need to have more education on the rules of the law, because most of us, we don't understand the law. That's why we take the law into our own hands to do many things.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Who do you support, Kotoko Hearts?
Oh, I am a Phobian.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for sharing your experience. You know what Emmanuel said makes me wonder. We talk about bringing back the love and bringing back people. But, I mean, we haven't done any scientific study, but how many people have we actually permanently lost because of May 9th? I mean, he says his love for football vanished. I'm not sure he's been to the stadium since.
It's because we don't learn. I mean, if you look at what has happened in Europe, especially in England, Hillsborough happened, and they've made changes.
Yeah. And even the police, they've compelled them to change their testimony and admit that they were culpable. And, you know, we see 96 on jerseys for Liverpool. It's memorable, right? Now, when people see 96, they know what it was.
Hillsborough, yeah.
But 127?
That's a huge number.
We don't remember that as much.
We remember nothing.
The number is scary. I mean, to lose a total of 127 people on a night, plus the many others who got injured. Some are maimed forever. I mean, those who lost their fathers, breadwinners, it's such a terrible thing.
It is. I have a call from Abutia in the Volta region. Good evening.
Good evening, Amen.
Hi. Were you at the stadium?
No, I was young by then.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, at that time I was at Kaswa. But I lost an uncle who was the breadwinner of our family. Uncle Tennessee.
Hello? Oh, I think I must have lost him on the line. But he says he lost an uncle who was the breadwinner of the family. You see 127, but here in Ghana, we are big on extended family. You can imagine within the networks how many people were affected. Jerome, I know there were a lot of people who were bused from Kumasi who came down to see this match. From an interaction with the fans, to what extent have some people switched off completely because of this?
Oh, yes. I mean, I know a few fans who, when I was in Kumasi those days, and let me say I wasn't at Kotoko Express when the incident happened, but 5 years later, or 4 years later when I joined Kotoko Express, I still know fans who will not watch Kotoko match, whether in Accra or Kumasi, because of that incident.
Just hold on for me. Let me speak to Francis from Ashaiman. Francis, good evening. I've lost him. Jerome, please carry on.
Yeah, and even in Koforidua, I don't want to remind families of this incident, but there was this man at the Mangwasi court, one of the courts in Koforidua, who died through that incident. I remember very well, because right after that game, I didn't see him again. And I was meeting him usually at the newsstands. I asked the news vendor, who incidentally was a Kotoko chairman, where that man was. And he told me he died in the incident. And I don't know where his family is, but I don't believe that if he had a son then, that son would love to follow Kotoko, would love to follow us, or would love to even follow local game. We need to understand that violence takes so much from our game, and that is why we have to work together to stem it. We cannot take it out. Like I said, in those advanced countries, they misbehave, but the law works.
Yeah, I mean, they even identify who the hooligans are, and they are tracked. When you come to the stadium, they know you are there. If you have a stadium ban, you can't come to the stadium under any circumstances, because they will spot you and they will send you away. I'm taking a few more calls. You have the opportunity to call before we close this discussion. Aziz mentioned the son of his vice chair, somebody I met and interviewed a few years ago. He wasn't born at the time, so he's 20 years. So every time midnight comes, it coincides with, the days leading up to his birth. He never saw his dad. His education has been affected. He was left to be raised by his grandparents. I met him, sat with him at Nima to talk, and you could see that this is a young man whose future, in many ways, has been determined by midnight.
Yes, so that's why when fans go to the stadium, they have to realize that the implications of their actions, whether actions or inactions, could lead to history even being wiped or depleted. So any action we take, we have to think twice.
Let me go to Achimoda. Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
What's your name, boss?
My name is Obing.
Obing, hi, there's another Obing here.
I have this experience during the Kufikoja Kotoko versus Etoile Sahel. Yeah, I was at the stadium that day, and then I tell you, it was very scary. But stones and what have you. I entered my kitchen restaurant, and at the end of the day, the referee came to the kitchen. It's my kitchen restaurant in Babaya Sports Stadium, and he just smashed everything there. I nearly got injured, but since the love for my Fabus, I still go to the stadium. It's not a very nice thing.
Wow.
It's a nice experience to go through.
Obin, do you still go to the stadium?
Oh yeah, why not? I still support my Fabulous. So if there is any time that there is a chance, I do go.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience. You were there?
Yes, I was there. Kotoko match, I was there.
Jerome, were you there? Kofi Koja.
Yes. The guy ran away. It wasn't
they chased him to Golden Tulip.
Yeah.
So I saw that incident, and you want to ask those fans that smashed it's my kitchen and broke into it to bring the referee out. What happened to them?
No,
I mean, you see,
Jerome, when I spoke to referee S.L. Walker, one of the things he told me is that sometimes club officials give the wrong impression. They give the impression we have bribed the referee. They give the impression everything is sorted out, that they should have gone this way. So they drop the information among the fans and they step back and watch the fans misbehave with that.
I agree with him. I've been in club football enough, well enough to accept what he's saying. They do it. Only that, you see, sometimes we can't mention names, but they do it. I have seen on countless number of times from Bekum to Mando to Kumasi to Obuasi, where club officers incite fans to misbehave. Even the January incident of last year, the FA charged some protocol officials for inciting fans. And I'm saying that we cannot go that way. You know, if we really want to fight violence, what you just announced. I'm also reading somewhere that Grusa indeed entered the changing room of the referees to attack them. How do we fight violence?
Just hold on for me. I think I have two callers. I have Stephen first. Stephen, where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, my brother.
Charlie, what do you have to share with us?
Yeah, why is it that I've been a football follower not now, and one thing that keep interesting and planted the interest in we the blacks is that with this fight, they have something that they have been able to manage and maintain it. As such, their national security wise, they have these stewards. Look at, for instance, this Liverpool and Man United game. Look at what happened. They're able to detect that some of the stewards were even trying to give the agitated fans the entry to the stadium. And now they are investigating. So why can't our team take the mantle upon themselves and also train people like these stewards who will be active and aggressive during game matches and those what have you? Because other than that, I don't know what this our state security wise. Sometimes they can be compromised. They can be compromised. But when you have your private ones working actively attached to the government one, I think it works.
All right.
And I don't know why these GFA people, they've been going outside to be witnessing this EPL and those things. They knew they have it, but they can't introduce it here.
It's a very good observation. It's a very good observation. Thanks for your contribution. I think I have another caller. Hello, good evening. Okay. Jerome, I would want you to finish and I'll come to Farouk. He makes 2 points. He thinks we should involve private security. 2, he says the FA people travel all over the world. So why are they not applying? But let me go. Jerome, you finish your point. The point you were making about Guza.
So just to round up, I think that we don't believe in what we say.
Yeah.
Just this afternoon, Facebook reminded me of a statement that the JFA issued in 2014, talking about what they've done to curb violence. I wish I could read it to you.
Oh,
and you will know that nothing has happened. So, bottom line is, we don't believe in the things we say. And if we really want to fight violence, we should act on what we say.
Charlie, we did talk. Farouk. The one says we go all over the world. We say we are going on, sightseeing visits. We say, oh, this person was here. This person has met these people, FIFA, whatever. Yeah. We've seen it all. We've been to tournaments. We've seen how it's organized. Stakeholder engagements have been held where we are trying to get ideas as to how to get the fans to come into the stadiums. Now we are saying bring back the laugh. Looks like the love is not enough.
Some have even gone out for courses on that. Some have degrees in football administration.
Now we've introduced club licensing and
so
inspection.
In terms of the knowledge, I think our people have it. They've seen it all, they've learnt it all. It's the application of it. And this COVID experience should tell you something. When the GFA said, don't take fans to the stadium, what happened? People misbehaved. They didn't care about it. When they said 25%, you could see more than. So you ask, who printed the ticket? There are people at the gate who should know the 25% of that particular venue. So after that particular limit, you shouldn't sell more tickets. But people still open.
And there's the house owners, the sports authority for some of the stadiums.
So the stakeholders are many, and if you want to look at a fault, you pick bits and pieces from each and every one. We all have to learn and improve. I mean, if we don't do that, we'll still be in this mess forever, and it will affect all of us.
It seems you are working in silos, and there's a lot of talk. I mean, and ceremonies like today. And you know what? After the break, before we go into the regular things we talk about, I'll let my producer play the speeches from today's ceremony for what it's worth. And we'll listen to it.
Plenty talk.
Yeah.
No action. We just talk. Go back to type. And it's sad. I mean, if you listen, people's life have been affected.
Charlie, and every time we are saying never again.
And we say never again. Then we are beating referees. Never again. Then we are throwing stones. Never again. Club officials are misbehaving. Because nobody, in fact, they should move from being sanctioned by the FA to being locked up in the courts. If they do 2 or 3 people, now when you start throwing stones, you be careful.
Yeah, I mean, look, these days, because I still look at the May 9th video, I can see this guy who is taking our seats clearly enough to know that a few of the people could have identified the guy.
Yeah.
Very easy. We could have taken the TV footage. Everybody will know this guy supports us. He's from here. This guy supports Kotoko. This is his name. And we could have arrested these people and taken care of them. But that's not what we did. Even now, we can identify people. But as to whether the clubs will yield them up and give these people up, it's another issue.
I think the FA too should be very stringent. I mean, you see, if you are banning people, ban them and let them feel the effect.
I think they are too reactionary.
I mean, if someone misbehaves and you know that what they did could cost lives, if you are banning them, don't do 3 matches, 4 matches.
Yeah.
You ban them a year, 2 years, 3 years. Let them go. By the time they come back, they've grown grey hair. They would have learned some lessons.
Jerome, I'd like to thank you for joining us for this first part of the show.
Thank you.
And to help us discuss May 9th. Guys, we say never again. James Bond says never say never again. But the truth is that this is a serious matter, much more serious than we make it out to be. When it comes to lives, even if it's a single life lost, it matters. And there's a chain of events that usually leads to the loss of lives. We've seen that in May 9th. We've seen that in subsequent incidents that have occurred. And although the number of deaths or injuries, fatalities involved has never gone up to that number, even one injury is not worth that risk at the stadium. So when are we going to stop the niceties, the branding, the big words, the speeches, and get serious about things? This has been a look at May 9th. We are not done yet. We'll now resume and talk about what's happening in the world of sports. I'm going for a break. When I come back, we'll play the speeches from today's event to mark May 9th. That is what we do once every year, and we are doing after 20 years. We want to see more action. So we'll play those speeches for you as is customary to do, and we'll switch and talk about the big leagues. Some of the leagues have been sewn up Others have not. And there's still a lot of talking points to look at here on the show. This is MX24. This is Off the Cuff. We are happy to have you here. Stay tuned. Please don't go.